Playbook for Performance, the official podcast of Shauna Corden, the Joan of Arc for corporate healing and performance. Join the quest to make work fun again by preparing leadership for engaging workplaces. And now, your host.
Hello and welcome, friends, to another edition of the Playbook for Performance podcast. I'm your host, Shauna Corden, and today we're going to be talking about, do you feel yourself splintering? This whole idea about integrity, and that's our theme for this month. We're going to be talking about integrity. Last month we were talking about spring cleaning and this idea of your personal boundaries, your standards, your values. And now that you've done all that cleaning to make things tidy for yourself, are you noticing that there's some splintering going on? What's going on for you? So our mission is really to make work fun again by building better leaders. But as you know, if you've been following the podcast, we're working on a new book, Reunited, that's bringing those that we've separated in our polarity back into our lives because they have a lot of value to us, friends, family, etc. So the solution here about this idea of splintering is to try integrity, to reunite those parts and become whole. So what is integrity and what are we talking about when we say integrity? Well, first of all, it's not a moral compass. The idea of integrity is that something is intact, that it's strong, it really supports you, and that when things are not in integrity, you may feel them splintering off or shaving. If you've ever looked at an object that's in the wind, or like a movie that shows an airplane that's coming apart, you know, you can see that the rivets are coming off and then some of the siding is coming off, and pretty soon it disintegrates. And that's what can happen if we don't put ourselves back together and shed off the things that really don't belong to us, that don't support us, that are not in alignment with our values. So what else about integrity? What is it that makes us feel disconnected? So think about this idea about when you are with others, when you are reading material, watching something, and all of a sudden you notice your mind starts to wander. You're not really enjoying the process, the company, the film, whatever it might be. You really start to notice that you don't feel right. Sometimes people talk about it when they look at themselves in the mirror and they look into their eyes and they have this feeling that is, who am I? What is this about? Why do I not feel like myself? So if you can identify those things that don't align with you, those are probably things that are out of integrity. Now notice I'm not talking about right and wrong. I'm not talking about this moral compass. We've talked about this in the podcast before. But in the field of coaching, we do not talk about integrity as a moral compass of right and wrong. We think of that as character. Character is the actions that you take when no one's watching. And so what is that for you? And that's very different than integrity, where in integrity, we're saying that all of the decisions that you're making, whether it's the vocabulary you use, the movies you watch, the people you hang out with, all of those things add up to being in alignment with your values. So if you're hanging out with people that don't share your same values, that might be out of integrity for you. It may not be. It depends on which values and how many values and things like that. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about this integrity piece, not the moral compass. So what else about it? The other thing that's showing up in the research that we've done for the book Reunited is this concept about people keeping silent. This might be self-censoring in terms of the opinion of the crowd that's around you, that you don't share their opinion, but you don't want to speak up because you're not ready for an argument, you're not in the mood to convince anybody, you don't believe in convincing anybody, it's just what's true for you. So that might be another situation that you experience this integrity issue. It might be what's happening in your workplace. It might be choices that your peer group is making. But when you feel the need to stay silent, that's usually an indication about integrity. So what else? When we talk about integrity, we're talking about people, buildings, being able to withstand strong winds. So often when I talk about resilience, I'm talking about, think of yourself like a willow, not an oak. So what happens in really strong windstorms is that oaks may topple over completely, fully intact, or they may break off. Branches may break off, etc. But in strong winds, a willow, which is really flexible, stays rooted, but it bends with the force of the winds. And one of the things that we know in the research is that for organizations to succeed with change management, they have to have resilient people. So what builds employee resilience? Strong hygiene. We're not talking about deodorant and brushing your teeth. We're talking about good nutrition, strong sleep patterns, good sleep habits. We're talking about regular stress release through prayer, meditation, exercise, social support, things like that. And so it's even more important that that social support that you have, that you do feel like you can be in integrity with that group, that they're supportive of you, they have your back, they see you for who you are, they really understand you, they get you, you feel like these are my people. And so whenever we see these parts splinter because the friendship group no longer supports them, the church group, the social group, the professional group, the more we start to splinter because we're making ourselves smaller in order to conform to the group around us, and it makes the whole of the structure weaker. When I recommend work on integrity concerns, so let's say I'm starting work with a leader in an organization, and we're working on things, and I hear them say some of these things I'm about to mention. I say, okay, I think it's time to do a little sidebar project. We need to work on integrity. So one might be the confusion with the moral compass. So this idea of, my social group approves when I do X, Y, Z. For example, I'm an executive. I need to meet the dress code. I need to wear a tie, and I need to be in polite company, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not really how I feel about myself. So my group thinks this versus this is how I feel in my gut. Okay? Another symptom I might see is when they really struggle making decisions. So for my clients, it might be same song, different verse. It's the exact same decision, but in a different group or a different sequence, but they still struggle. And I say, wait a minute, we've already made this decision. Why are you rethinking it or doubting your judgment before? Or why is this a hard decision to make? From my side of the table, it looks pretty obvious, but for them, not so much. And so when we're in integrity, it's pretty easy to say, values also helps quite a bit here. Okay, because remember that integrity is we are making decisions in alignment with our values. We're not going against our values. The other comment I hear, the direct quote is, nothing is for me. So they feel like they're doing things for everybody else. They're pleasing their family. They're pleasing their work group, etc. But they think there's nothing for me. There's no time for me. I don't get to enjoy my personal activities, etc. I have to say one of the most dissatisfying interview questions I ever asked anybody was a female owner of a winery. And she was a real pioneer in her space. And I asked her about her approach to work-life balance. because I was getting unsatisfactory answers from people. All my senior VPs, executive VPs were saying, there's no balance, it's just all integrated. If I need to go to a recital during the day, I do that. If I need to work at night, I do that. My life and my work are seamless, it's all together. I was like, I don't think so. And I do believe that from a personality sense. We don't want to be one person at work and another person at home. But I didn't feel that way about the time, because I do think that people need to be able to shut down clearly and have thinking time and space away from the challenges of their workspace so that they get new, richer ideas. I also think that, spiritually, we don't see a lot of that in the workplace because we don't have the community around us that supports us. So, but her response was, when work is unhappy and home is unhappy, I feel like I'm in balance. I was like, that is awful. I can't imagine feeling that way all the time. But that was her way of balance. So it has stuck with me ever since. It's been probably 20 years since I asked her that question. The other symptom I see, regularly compromising. So at my worst as a parent, I remember I was driving my daughter down the road and she asked me, Mom, what does compromise mean? And I said, it's when two people want different things and nobody gets what they want. Probably my worst moment as a parent. I'm sure there's competition for that worst moment, but I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I've just set her up that compromise is, not a good thing. But when people see that they're regularly compromising on either their performance, their health, their relationships, their values, that's very concerning to me as a coach. The next would be, my values aren't here in this group. So it could be that you grew up with this group, you were friends with this group, but now you've outgrown the group. You've got higher standards now, and therefore what they're still happy with is no longer satisfying for you. I know that people have a lot of regret about this area, but that is part of growing. And that's why I highly recommend, when my clients go through coaching, that they are sharing their coaching process and growth with their partner, that their partner might engage a coach as well, because we don't want one side of the partnership growing and the other part stagnating, right? And we know that stagnation is a bad thing. So if you see that your values are no longer represented, I think it's time to start hunting and gathering for a group that does support either your new standards or your new values, and find your people. And then finally, I don't do the same alone as I do in public. So, I had a friend who, her cousin was the president at Microsoft for a while, and, he did the corporate thing. And then when he showed up to the family reunion, he was wearing like cut off sweats. He was really like, I get to be this, because this is my family. These are my people. But if you find that you're having to be too drastic, you have the tie-dye deadhead t-shirt on under the shirt and tie, it might be time to start shopping for a new job that, gets to support your deadhead tendencies. So one of the stories I wanted to share about integrity is a company that I once did work for. When I first started with them, they were really just fabulous. And I had the occasion this weekend at a wedding to talk to another person who had worked with the same company, and how great it was, how much they really took care of their people. And I had to downsize a group, and in our response to that, we had reached out. We offered to buy out their home, pay for the movers, get them installed in the new geography, do a trailing spouse employment. Really just, we could not have been better, besides me not closing that area. And by my tenure ending, we didn't do anything. And it was really about the support of the shareholders, about Wall Street, and all of those are important. I am not going to deny that financial performance is why we are in business to start with. However, I think that when we start calling people human capital and we act like it's cattle that's being loaded onto, feed trucks or trains going to the slaughterhouse, and they cease being people, that's when you see loyalty change. That's when you see the great resignation, the great reflection. People are thinking, I am putting my heart and soul and my health into this company, and I'm no longer getting the support from them. So why should I be loyal? Why should I give at this level? And I think you'll see this again and again. And I will call this, I'm forecasting that we are going to return to start taking care of people. In the book Reunited, when I discuss these kind of case studies that are happening with people and how they have decided, you're not deserving of my energy, either to fight with you or to engage with you because of this, they are really recognizing that there is great value in those relationships that they have either paused or discarded, and that there is great opportunity in reuniting with those folks and making sure that they restore those relationships because they do have value and they add value to our lives. They enrich us. And we actually have room for a lot more diversity of thought than we were aware of. So I am hoping that will extend from the personal relationships to that of the business relationships, and that businesses see that it is very important to care for their people, to be compassionate, to have empathy, to see them as more than just bottom line contributors, but they are part of the culture that makes everything tick. So that's what we have for integrity this week. That's going to be our theme for this month. We'll be sharing more tips and tricks about restoring your integrity. But again, I really want to anchor you with that image of, whether it's a house or a plane, that for everything to be intact, to operate as it's intended, it really can't splinter. So look at the pieces of your life that feel like they're splinters and how they're probably not in alignment with your values and your beliefs. And if we can get those back on track, either shed those pieces or reconcile or reunite those pieces, then we're going to be in a lot better shape. So don't forget to like the podcast, subscribe, tell your friends. We really want to make sure that we can be making the workplace more fun for as many people as we can. But we also want to reunite those of you who you've separated from and you really want to get back together with. So until next week, take good care.
Thank you for listening to Playbook for Performance. To learn more about Shauna Corden, her consulting programs and tools, please visit her website at shaunacorden.com and follow us on social media at Shauna Corden.